Hey, Matt, thanks for joining me today. I just wanted to kind of get some time with you to talk about the CMMC Accelerate event that we hosted last week. It's our third year that we hosted it. So if you can first give everyone a little intro of who you are and what you did at the event, and then we'll kind of talk about the major takeaways and things that you learned from attending this year's event.
Sure. As Laura said, I'm Matt Stern. I'm the Chief Security Officer for Hypori. Um, been in the cybersecurity business for a very long time. I don't want to say how long because it makes me feel old. But let's see. At the event, I was able to, or I had the esteemed honor and distinction of introducing Flo Groberg, Medal of Honor recipient, and he did a great job of talking about why CMMC is important from a operator point of view, and a guy who's been at literally the pointy end of the spear. And that was a great intro to the entire event. And then got a chance to talk about a little bit of cybersecurity and some things that are near and dear to my heart about how the threat is going to be continue to leverage AI to really get after our systems. And then I was also able to host a panel of CMMC experts, and it was a really great panel. Discussed a lot of really interesting topics, and actually managed to learn something myself at the conference, which we can either discuss now or I could tell you later. It's all up to you.
Yeah, no, so for those that don't know, CMMC Accelerate, we hosted at the Caresoft headquarters last week. We had about 500 people registered. We had this in person as well as virtual. We brought together organizations in the defense industrial base and those looking to really understand CMMC compliance, as well as what those requirements are moving forward. So it was a great session. We had multiple different sponsors. So thanks again to our sponsors. Our premium sponsors include Summit 7 and Caresoft, AWS, Okta, and Exonius too. So again, thank you to those sponsors. But Matt, touch on a little bit of what you learned from this conference. And this is our third year hosting. So, we've grew this from about 15 people in a classroom to, almost 500 this year. So, what were those major takeaways that you learned this year?
I think the biggest one for me was in the panel session. When you get guys with the level of experience that we had on our the final panel, is kind of the keystone, the capstone, whatever you want to call it. Started discussing how much the CMMC, especially the level 2 audit and security assessment, is being seen in industry, but also in other parts of the industry. So one of the panel members, and once again, I'm getting old. I can't remember if it was who it was on the panel, but they brought up the fact that insurance companies now are looking at CMMC as kind of almost the highest standard the highest standard in cybersecurity, and that companies that are gaining the level 2 audit and compliance certification or the validation, they're actually taking that and giving it to their insurance company, and they're getting points in favor of, hey, we're meeting this extra requirement. We're going above and beyond normal, like a SOC 2 audit or some of the other standards and audits that are out there. And the insurance companies are reducing premiums. There's some benefits to doing this that I hadn't recognized. And I think it's going to become the de facto standard in the industry writ large, even outside. So even people that aren't, say, defense industrial base, don't normally do business with the government, can benefit from the audit. And so I just thought that was really interesting that they're starting to see that trend from the MSP and other kind of sides that we don't necessarily get that same visibility. So that was a kind of a big thing for me. And then obviously meeting new vendors, talking to people, and just it's a great way to kind of the birds of the feather, being able to talk to folks that are going through the same experience and learn lessons from them that you may not pick up in another venue or something else. And I think that was key for the event, is is being able to kind of get across the intangibles, the unknowns, maybe the things that aren't directly in an audit or that aren't published, but you could definitely learn from and gain those little nuances to help you pass your audit.
No, that totally makes sense. It sounds like, some folks that maybe didn't have CMMC on their radar should put it on their radar because of those additional benefits that we were able to learn during the event. So I guess one of my questions with that is, it sounds like there's some organizations that haven't even started, but what from the event, what would you say that kind of the CMMC readiness did you feel was coming from the audience?
I think so. I've been obviously doing the CMMC thing for a while and had it on our radar. And of course, we've gone through this same level of scrutiny as everybody else that's been through a CMMC audit. What I determined from the audience is we're now kind of like, if a couple of years ago, as people are like just trying to figure out if they need to do it, what's the minimum standard. And I think at this point in time, everybody recognizes, no, this is real. It's here. It's not a maybe anymore. It's here. And so what we're getting from the audience isn't any more questions about that, right? That's gone. So a lot of in the past, some of these events would have been, hey, is it really going to become a rule? How is it going to affect me? Those kind of things. Well, that's gone now. So now we're concentrating on the audit itself, the do's and don'ts of the audit, how to have the minimal impact on your organization while maximizing the effects, obviously. So it was a definite difference, and I think because of that, the audience was primed. The people that attended were primed to ask the questions that are relevant to, lessons learned, things that the gotchas in an audit. What are the things you got to look out for? And so I think all of these events, especially our event is evolved. And I think all of the folks that were there definitely have a different focus than we have had in years past.
No, it totally makes sense. With that, I mean, you touched on kind of where we were before and leading up to now in terms of that readiness. Where do you see things going in the future, especially in the next, maybe 6 months?
Well, I think right now everybody is trying to get their audits done. So obviously the companies that are the auditors, the three PAO auditors that are set up to do this are racking and stacking. It's kind of first come, first serve. So you got to get in their queue.
Yeah.
Obviously, internally as a company, you have to make sure that the company understands that everybody's involved. It's everybody's part of the security team when you go through something like this, and you have to be prepared. And so I think, and just making sure you have the right documentation. We've learned several times that things that we thought we documented correctly, when you get in front of an auditor and they're not living and breathing in your environment every day, the more you can put into to the actual documentation, the easier it is for them, and the more descriptive you can be. And so I think it's those kind of nuances that people are picking up on and are important as we move forward in the CMMC journey, because it's a journey, right? It's not a fire and forget. We do this, then you have to maintain it. You have to prove that you're maintaining the standards, and then you get audited again based on whether or not you're meeting the standards. And I think the other big impact that people are recognizing is, if you want to do business in the DoD, this is it. If you're not doing this, you're not going to do business Department of War in the DoW. So
Yeah, I gotta love that little nuance now, for sure. So, did you hear anything at this year's event that reinforced your perspective on where the market's heading?
I think one of the really interesting conversations that between Okta and Axonius and even Summit 7, when we were up on the panel, and kind of throughout the entire set, is how do we use AI to our advantage, I mean, my talk was about how AI is definitely being used against us, but how can you use AI to speed up this process? And I think there are some indicators out there that we can move a lot, we can go faster in getting your documentation, getting all of the security controls documented, and not only documented, but implemented in your infrastructure using AI. And there's a lot more tools that are coming on board to be able to help facilitate that. So you don't have to, maybe you have to invest in a tool that helps you get there faster or helps you maintain your compliance or monitor your compliance and those kind of things. I certainly know that we have partners that we use currently that are using AI to that effect. And so that was kind of one of the things that I think is a bright spot, that we can use AI to our advantage to maintain compliance, to gain and maintain compliance. And I think that's a good thing.
No, I completely agree. It seems like, like you said, there's AI could be used for bad, but there's a lot of good that can come from it too. So,
Yep,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, looking to the future, what's something that you're hoping to see from the community by the time that we're back for next year's event?
I think once again, I think one of the most useful parts of our event was, as people are going through the journey, um, and they're gaining their level 2, or maybe pretty soon we'll have more and more companies that are going to have to gain level 3. More lessons learned, more kind of like, here's how to be successful. Um, More information from different vendors, because we keep as a CISO, we have a lot of requirements that get levied on us. And so we get into the discussion about, okay, if I need to do this and I need to maintain this for my contracts with the DoD, do I have to give up something? How do I afford a capability? How do I bring a capability on board? What does it replace? Do I need to hire more people? It's all those kind of lessons that I think are very beneficial. And we really did a good job, I think, in starting that conversation. I think next year it would be great to see us continue that, of, lessons learned, successful. What does success look like? How do we get there? How do we minimize impact? And how do we make it so that it doesn't break the bank and I'm not, expending resources that I need to do some other thing in my company? So, because as a CISO, you kind of recognize you may not be you're more like a cost center, not a profit center. So,
Definitely. So, it sounds like a lot of CISOs need to prioritize, what they're doing. If what from your point of view, if attendees walked away and only could act on one or two things immediately, what would you say they should? What would you recommend they prioritize?
well, certainly you got to get your audit done and you got to get it right. And I think one of the things that I can't emphasize enough is the pre-assessment audits, because, like I said, you want to enter into this thing when you actually do your audit. You want to make sure that you're ready for it and you don't misinterpret a rule. So if you think how it's going to be interpreted by an auditor, you've got to be certain. You can't guess. And so I can't, some people describe it as a mock audit. It's a
Yeah.
pre-assessment. But when you come to your final assessment, you don't want to leave anything to guesswork, because there's too much on the line. You got to pass this thing. And we've seen in our own internal audits that maybe we weren't as descriptive, or maybe we didn't have a security control to the same level as the auditors wanted. And then I think the second thing you have to be careful of is CISOs need to make sure that when they are going through their audits, that they just don't blindly take whatever the auditor says as being gospel. Sometimes you got to push back, because they may add requirements or add something to the requirement. If the requirement says password is good, but the auditor is saying, well, what else are you doing? You say, well, I'm using password. Here's the password standards. I've met the requirement. And they push back. You say, okay, show me in writing where it says I have to do something different. I mean, we're talking about the essence of compliance is meeting the standard. It's great to exceed the standard, and that's wonderful. But when it comes to the audit, you got to sometimes push back with the auditors and say, hey, what is the requirement exactly? Because if I've met the requirement exactly, then we move on and we don't, we just keep going. And it becomes a binary equation and less open to interpretation. And that's another piece of advice I would give any CISO out there that's going through this.
So Matt, one thing you actually just touched on was about how we, Hypori, leverage some of our partners for our CMMC compliance. So I know we did bring in some premium sponsors. We also had some other vendors, the tabletop vendors that were there. Is there a benefit to the CMMC Accelerate from an audience perspective of having those vendors there?
Absolutely. I think you could say, well, it's got Matt Stern's thumbprint on it, and I've approved these vendors. But more importantly, I think it's a great place for folks are already coming because they want to learn more about CMMC in the process and how do they successfully pass their audit and everything else. I think it's also a great opportunity to connect vendors with customers and customers with legitimate, like vetted, these people know what they're doing kind of vendors out there, because you're going to see a lot of these 3PAOs, these third-party organization auditors that, some of them are really good. Summit 7, great reputation, or Coalfire, great reputation. Kratos, great reputation. There's legitimate companies out there that do this stuff really well. Exonius, great vendor, and Okta, obviously we use Okta, been using them for years as an identity management tool. So we're kind of vetting the vendors to make sure that if you come to our event, you're not going to be inundated with people that really don't have game or really don't know what they're doing. And it's a great place for vendors to connect with customers and connect customers to identify vendors that maybe will help them with some of their security controls, or actually help them with their audit, or, the advisory services, or whatever their need is. I would love for us to grow our vendor pool so that we have more and more, not only attendees, but also vendors that are there to help our partners in this lovely world we live in now to get their CMMC audits done. And also from a security point of view, actually, provide the security that, going all the way back to Flo's comments about why we're doing this. We're protecting the information, we're protecting the systems, we're protecting the technical capabilities that we give to our warfighters. And we need to take that seriously. And you got vendors that are there, and their customers or attendees that are both, that's the priority, and that's why they're there. So I think it's a great venue to be able to do that, and can't thank Carahsoft enough for them providing that facility, because it's a great, easy to get to, great location, and a really nice space. And I can't thank them enough for that.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be opening it up to more sponsorships, more tabletops, premium sponsors for next year, as well as, other speakers. I mean, we can only bring so much to the table in terms of, our technology and our kind of expertise. But this is really a forum for others to also share their knowledge and learnings in this space. So also taking, call for papers for 2027 as well. So if you're interested in sponsorships or speaking, or just really want to get involved and get in front of not only the customers, but partners, it's definitely kind of the event for you. We might be a little biased, but definitely want to throw that out there. As you mentioned, there's a lot that's going to be happening in the next couple of months. We're really looking forward to next year's event. We have it tentatively scheduled for April 13th for 2027. Most likely going to be back at Carahsoft's headquarters. So if you're yeah, exactly. As a viewer, if you want to view the sessions that took place this year and look at some of those slides, or even find out more information about 2027's event and be in the loop as we start announcing that, definitely click the link in the caption in the comments, or visit hypori.com. So again, thanks, Matt, for kind of walking through your biggest takeaways from this year's event, and we're already looking forward to next year's.